Hi there. Been reading my Bible, and just a couple weeks ago I read 2 Kings chapter 5, which is where Naaman gets healed of leprosy. Thought it was a great story. I thought we could read it together. So 2 Kings chapter 5, this is in my NIV Bible. So here we go. Naaman healed of leprosy is the header here. Now Naaman was commander of the army of the king of Aram. He was a great man in the sight of his master and highly regarded, because through him the Lord had given victory to Aram. And some Bibles say Syria. I guess it's probably modern-day Syria. He was a valiant soldier, but he had leprosy. And of course, leprosy is this disease that, we see through the Bible here. It's like a, I don't know, your skin was like dying and flesh falling off, and it was very contagious. You had to cover yourself and tell people that you were unclean when you came near them, so that they wouldn't catch the leprosy. And sometimes you would be alienated to a leper colony, where away from society, because you had this deadly disease, and even if it didn't mean death, even if you didn't die from it, which, from my understanding, usually that's the way you die, it's still, the life that you do live, you're living through this, leprosy. It's always there with you. And it's oppressing. So he was a valiant soldier, but he had leprosy. Now, bands of Aram had gone out and taken captive a young girl from Israel, and she served Naaman's wife. So yeah, Aram and Israel, through both of these kings' books, were always fighting back and forth, off and on. And so this is a kidnapped girl that they had taken from Israel. She said to her mistress, "If only my master would see the prophet who is in Samaria, he would cure him of his leprosy." And that's Samaria is where Israel had set up camp. So that's where Israel is right now. There's a prophet there who can cure you of this deadly disease. Naaman went to his master and told him what the girl from Israel had said. "By all means go," the king of Aram replied. "I will send a letter to the king of Israel." So Naaman left, taking with him 10 talents of silver, 6,000 shekels of gold, and 10 sets of clothing. The letter that he took to the king of Israel read, "With this letter I am sending my servant Naaman to you, so that you may cure him of his leprosy." So first of all, it's like, this is a kidnapped girl from the enemy territory, and so Naaman is, at the advice of this kidnapped girl, going into the enemy territory with a letter from this king to that king, asking for a cure of leprosy. And I did the conversion. I mean, at today's rate of silver and gold in American dollars, it's about $4.5 million worth of silver and gold, plus the 10 sets of clothing. So $4.5 million and of cash and prizes. And, king to king, I'm sending this guy, my man, I'm sending him to you so that you may cure him of his leprosy. As soon as the king of Israel read the letter, he tore his robes and said, "Am I God? Can I kill and bring back to life? Why does this fellow send someone to me to be cured of his leprosy? See how he's trying to pick a quarrel with me?" This king, he knows he's not God, but it doesn't say Yahweh. It just says, God, Elohim. And can I kill and bring back to life? At least he knows that this is outside of his control. But this guy is standing here, a leper standing here with $4.5 million in cash and prizes, and the king can only see it as an attack on him, like he's offended. He's trying to pick a fight with me by sending me this diseased man. It doesn't even come into his head that there's a way that I know a man of God who can help. But anyway, so Elisha, the man of God, heard that the king of Israel had torn his robes. He sent him this message: "Why have you torn your robes? Have the man come to me, and he will know that there was a prophet in Israel." This guy's just have him come to me, he'll know there's a prophet in Israel. I will, there's no doubt in this man's mind. Anyway, so Naaman, with his horses and chariots, stopped at the door of Elisha's house. Cash and prizes, $4.5 million in cash and prizes, horses and chariots. Elisha sent a messenger to say to him, "Go wash yourself in the Jordan 7 times in the Jordan, and your flesh will be restored, and you will be cleansed. So Naaman, I brought $4.5 million in cash and prizes. I got all the chariots and my servants and everything. I came to the door. You sent a servant to tell me this, to go take a bath in the... But Naaman went away angry and said, I thought surely he would come out to me and stand and call on the name of the Lord, his God, wave his hand over the spot and cure me of my leprosy. Are not Abana and Pharpar, the rivers of Damascus, better than any of the waters of Israel? Couldn't I wash in them and be cleansed? So he turned and went off in a rage. And I thought that was interesting here that he says that, I thought, the name of the Lord, his God, wave his hand over and cure me of my leprosy. He's definitely making it known that it's not his God. It's the God of this man here in Israel. Wave your hands over it, do your little magic trick and cure me. But it didn't happen the way that he expected it to. Instead, he did not, this highly respected man in Aram comes over here and the messenger tells him to go take a bath. Anyway, Naaman's servants went to him and said, my father, if the prophet had told you to do some great thing, would you not have done it? So how much more then if he tells you to wash and be cleansed? So these are, also unbelieving men that he brought with him from Aram. Just logically, look, you came out here, you've got leprosy. He says, take a bath. Why not just take the bath? Wash 7 times in the Jordan, or the specific instructions. But he expected some big great thing and to be cured, and this whole, instead it's not what he expected, and it's So he went down and dipped himself in the Jordan 7 times, as the man of God had told him. And his flesh was restored and became clean like that of a young boy. He had to get over himself, get over his expectations or his preconceived notions of what this healing would look like. He had to, I like that he didn't wave his hands. He told him these instructions. He had to go. He had to go and humble himself and dip in the Jordan. And I like to think, that, I don't know if he had to go all the way into the water, dip, come out, all the way back into the water, dip in, come out, all the way back into the water, dip and come out. I don't know if his servants were standing over there watching. But I like to think that as he was going through this process, that, that his faith was growing with each time as he was thinking this, and then by the time it came to do for the 7th time, I like to think that he went into this water and knew that he was going to come out cleansed, because that's what happened. He did. He went down into the 7 times and he came up and his flesh was restored and became clean like that of a young boy. Then Naaman and all of his attendants went back to the man of God. He stood before him and said, now I know that there is no God in all the world except in Israel. Please accept a gift from your servant. Went from, calling the name of the Lord his God, to now I know there is no other God in all the world except in Israel. Please accept a gift from your servant. The prophet answered, as surely as the Lord lives whom I serve, I will not accept a thing. And even though Naaman urged him, he refused. Like, please, there's no God. This disease that I've had to live my life through, this death that I've carried around with me where I go. I can't touch people. I have to yell out unclean. I don't know how extensive his leprosy was, but that's my understanding of leprosy, is highly contagious, and that is your life. Your life is carrying around this death until you die, and just making your best of it anyway. And this has been cured. He's been made clean through a method that he didn't see, that he had to humble himself to go through this process and be made clean. And now he knows he came to be made clean of his leprosy, but through the being made clean, he also knows there is no God except in all the world except in Israel. Anyway, so he refuses any kind of a gift "If you will not," said Naaman, "please let me, your servant, be given as much earth as a pair of mules can carry. For your servant will never again make burnt offerings and sacrifices to any other god except for the Lord. But may the Lord forgive your servant for this one thing. When my master enters the temple of Rimmon to bow down, and he is leaning on my arm, and I am bowing there also, when I bow down in the temple of Rimmon, may the Lord forgive your servant for this." So he knows the living God, and he knows that bowing to another god is not okay, and he knows that the Lord sees him where he is, and he knows that but he's going back into his his life, into his place of business, and he is now a believer in the Lord. He knows the Lord watches him, and he knows the Lord has commands that he needs to walk in. He knows the Lord. He carries with him the joy of the Lord and the peace now, because he knows the living God. Anyway, go in peace, Elisha said. After Naaman had traveled some distance, though, Gehazi, I guess is how you say it, the servant of Elisha, a man of God, said to himself, "My master was too easy on Naaman, this Aramean, by not accepting from him what he brought. As surely as the Lord lives, I will run after him and get something from him." I got that face and that voice for him. Anyway, so I think that was interesting too. They both, over here, Naaman, when he's offered the cash and prizes, the 4.5, anything, please, please take something. We're going to give you anything. Elisha says, "As surely as the Lord lives, whom I serve, I will not accept a thing." Over here, Gehazi says, "As surely as the Lord lives, not whom I serve, I will run after him and get something from him." So he's like, he does not acknowledge. He says, I put it on God. I'm going to go get mine. I'm going to run after this Aramean and get something from him. He doesn't even know what, just something. What's the price you're putting on this curing of leprosy? While you stood by and a man of God worked through another man to cure him of his leprosy, and you want to throw a price tag on this healing? So you don't even know what it is, just something. I want something from this guy that, you're too easy on him. You got to go hard on these Arameans. So Gehazi hurried after Naaman. When Naaman saw him running towards him, he got down from the chariot to meet him. "Is everything all right?" he asked. "Everything is all right," Gehazi answered. "My master sent me to say, 2 men from the company of the prophets have just come to me from the hill country of Ephraim. Please give them a talent of silver and 2 sets of clothing." He's lying. So he's taking the Lord's name in vain. "I swear to God, I'm going to get mine." He lies, he makes up this story, he's stealing. Anyway, it's sickness. "By all means, take 2 talents, said Naaman. He's like, "Yeah, what can I do?" "Yeah, take as much, take double. You want 1 talent, take 2 talents. And so he urged Gehazi to accept them. He urged him to accept them. And he tied up the 2 talents of silver into 2 bags with the 2 sets of clothing. He gave them to 2 of his servants, and they carried them ahead of Gehazi. When Gehazi came to the hill, he took the things from the servants and put them away in his house. He sent the men away, and they left. And then he went in, and he stood before his master Elisha. "Where have you been, Gehazi?" Elisha asked. "Your servant didn't go anywhere," Gehazi answered. But Elisha said to him, "Was not my spirit with you when the man got down from his chariot to meet you? Is this a time to take money or to accept clothes, olive groves, vineyards, flocks, herds, or manservants or maidservants? Naaman's leprosy will cling to you and your descendants forever." And then Gehazi went from Elisha's presence, and he was leprous, as white as snow. So I think that's just an amazing story. For one, like just the difference between Naaman before and after his cleansing. I feel like the leprosy is a type or a representation, like a shadow of the curse of sin and death that is on man. I feel like that's kind of what's being portrayed in this story here. That this man had to get over his pride and humble himself to be cleansed and to be washed in the Jordan. And then he went from, complete disconnect to, just, I know there is no other God in all the world. And how can I will never offer another sacrifice to any other God. And then comparing that to Gehazi, who, Christ said it himself, they have the law, or in a story, he didn't say it was a parable, but a story with Lazarus and the rich man. The rich man wants Lazarus to help his family. He says, they have the law, they have the prophets. Even if a man raises from the dead, they will not believe. If they don't believe the law and the prophets, they're not going to believe if a man is raised from the dead. And that was Gehazi. Gehazi was walking with the prophet Elisha. He knows the law. He knows you don't lie. He knows you don't take the Lord's name in vain. He knows you don't steal. That's crazy. And also in the previous chapter, he saw a man raised from the dead, a boy raised from the dead. So Christ is with that Lazarus and rich man story. He's about to raise Lazarus from the dead, but also it describes Gehazi, who walked with the prophets, knew the law, saw a man raised from the dead, and still he doesn't believe. I mean, he may say he may know of God, but he doesn't walk in his commands. He doesn't. Just the difference between these two men waking up in the morning. Naaman, who's been cured of leprosy, Naaman, what do you want? Good morning, Naaman. What do you want today? Well, what do I want? What do I want? There must be some mistake. I've been cured of leprosy. I don't want anything. I know the living God. I know He is sovereign and just and loving and will provide. He is the God who sees and provides, the God who heals. I know the living God, and I want nothing. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. Boom. I get up with joy, peace, love, gentleness, faithfulness, self-control. I get up and I want to know the commands of my God. I want to walk in them. I know that He is sovereign and He sees every moment, is in control of every moment, and I want to serve. I live a life of gratitude through the healing that I've received, and I want to tell others about it. That's the heart that Naaman wakes up with. I know that heart. And Gehazi wakes up, he does not believe. He's got to wake up and he's got to get something. He's got to make sure people are treated harshly enough. This guy wasn't treated harshly enough. We're going to treat him more harshly. I need to get mine. And then he's got, he doesn't believe in the living God. He doesn't serve the living God. He serves Gehazi. He serves not the Lord. And with serving not the Lord, there is no sovereignty. There is no justice or love. There is, your hands, when you're serving the self, you have to get something. You don't even know what it is, and it's exhausting. You have to punish people. Vengeance is mine, says the Lord. Who are you to punish people? Why do you need this talent of silver and this clothes and stuff? You don't deserve it. Why do you wake up feeling that you need these things, or you want them, or you deserve them, or this guy needs to give them to you? And it's just, does the Lord provide? Does the Lord, don't you have everything you need? Why, it feels like there's you need to get all this taken care of so that now that I can live my life, I need to get these things. And to do it, I need to lie. I need to steal and hide things, lie straight to the face of the man of God who I had served. And the wrath of God abides on such a man. There is no joy and peace that follows him. His joy and peace lies in the hands of a false idol of self that can't provide it. It's the shakiest. It's like standing on one of these blades of grass. There's no substance to it at all. It is not the rock. He doesn't stand on the rock. So he gets up, standing on this blade of grass, and of course he's terrified and has to provide. He has to lie and cheat and steal to try and build his own security, because his security is as thin as one of these blades of grass, whereas Naaman, who knows the living God, stands on the rock. I also want to just compare the king who is rich in spirit and far from the Lord, doesn't even know how, doesn't come into his head that he knows a prophet in Israel who can cure the leprosy, versus this kidnapped Israeli girl who is in the pagan land, and although she doesn't have, she's far from her family. She's suffering. She is close to the Lord. And in that closeness to the Lord, she has compassion, She sees that this king has leprosy, and she knows the prophet who can cure him. It doesn't come into her that she's got resentments against this man, that she's got, who's kidnapped her, or that, what can I get from him? All the stuff that came into Gehazi's mind doesn't enter her mind, because she has just living through her faith. She has compassion for this man regardless of what her position is, and she knows that if he would only go see the prophet in Israel, he can be cleansed. And so he's the God of the valley, and she is poor in spirit and close to the Lord, crying out to him, I'm sure daily, just trusting in him and putting faith in him while in this pagan land. And when she sees the need for healing, she has the compassion to share that truth with these unbelievers, who later become believers. And now just look at the Naaman, who's going to go back to serve the king of Aram, and he is in the same type of position. He knows the living God. He carries with him the joy and the peace of knowing that his life is in the sovereign hands of a loving God. And so, just like that kidnapped Israeli girl can be a witness to him, he can now be a witness to the king in Aram, and a witness to anyone else who knew this man had leprosy and now he does not. Now he has joy and peace. Now he knows the living God, and he can be a witness and tell others about that too. So we can relate to a lot of different people in this story, but I want to be most like this Israeli girl in whatever position I'm put in, whatever kind of, so that I can't be offended like the king. The king was offended. There was a diseased man standing in front of him, and he said, I'm being attacked here. Like, this guy wants to pick a fight with me. Versus this kidnapped girl, who should be offended, isn't. She just wants to give compassion and help this man. So I want to be most like this Israeli girl in the story. Tell people that I know a prophet. Tell people that I know who are suffering, that I know someone who can help them, regardless of how much I might think that I'm offended or how much I might think that I'm attacked. How can I show compassion? How can I show love? How can I share the peace and joy? And how can I tell them about the prophet, the king, the savior, who has made me clean, because I was under the curse of sin and death, and I have been made clean, and I don't need to get anything from anyone. I don't need to make sure anyone is punished severely enough. I just want to serve as well, and I want to walk in the commands of my Lord. I want to, if I see suffering, I want to share my testimony and tell them that I know a prophet in Israel, or the Lord Jesus Christ, who can make them clean. And I know about throwing the seed. I didn't even go over that, but the $4.5 million in cash and prizes that he brought, Gehazi, he's like, 1 talent of silver is about $28,000. And that's what he puts the price on being cured of leprosy, $28,000. So what if Gehazi went back to Aram? Yeah, this guy cured me. It's only 28 grand. I gave him 56 grand because, I've been cured of leprosy, and that's a shocking amount to put on. But $28,000, I guess that's the price. But there is no price. It's you can't put a price on that. Freely you have received, freely give. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall see mercy. And if you're charging someone $28,000 to be cured, how merciful are you? And so, unknowing that this was I believe a picture of the salvation of sin and death, this physical leprosy. I believe Gehazi didn't know the spiritual curse that he was under, and now he carries that in a physical way But if he has every opportunity to humble himself too. He's of course just knows the law, knows the prophets, saw a man raised from the dead, but now he carries with him the curse of leprosy. And so in Job it says that the wicked, even when the Lord fetters them, they don't cry out for help. But he has the opportunity, just like Ahab did. Ahab humbled himself, and the Lord said, "I won't bring destruction on him." Versus Jezebel, who also had that opportunity but did not humble herself, and she ended up a bloody mess on the dirt. Anyway, I just think it's a great story, and I wanted to read it together. So, have a great day. Bye-bye.